And right now I want to say unequivocally, I'm innocent. I didn't kill Mr. Gurman. And I've got a lot to share with you all.
Sometimes getting on the stand is the defendant's best choice to convince the jury they're innocent. Then there are other times it can backfire. We're taking a look at the case of a former county leader accused of violently stabbing a Las Vegas reporter to death who was doing stories on him, and he testifies that there's no way he could be the killer. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Okay, so we want to start off with kind of a strange note here about this story. We have been covering this grisly murder case out in Las Vegas since 2022, but in just the last few days, the defendant has seemingly started saying his name differently.
Your Honor, our final witness is Mr. Robert Tellis. I've confirmed with Rob Baer, and we're going to ask the court's permission to allow him to testify by narrative.
Okay, that is fine. Anything else before we bring the jury panel in?
Not on behalf of the state, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Tellis can take the stand.
Please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
Robert Tejas. First name is Robert, R-O-B-E-R-T. Last name is Tejas, T-E-L-L-E-S.
Yeah, for most of the proceedings leading up to this, it's been Tellis, Robert Tellis. But now the defendant says it's pronounced Tejas, so we're just going to be going with that, Robert Tejas. All right. So Robert Tejas is now on trial in Nevada right now, and he's accused of killing a local investigative news reporter, 69-year-old Jeff German from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Why? Well, prosecutors say it was revenge, retribution for negative stories that German had written about Tejas and his office. We'll get to that in a second, but it has been 2 years, almost to the day, that German was found dead outside of his Las Vegas home on September 3rd, 2022. Investigators believe he was actually killed the day before, and they say former Clark County Public Administrator Robert Tejas was the one wielding the knife, an elected official. Now, a neighborhood surveillance camera captured part of this attack, and this is crucial, this is critical, because you are able to see someone in a large straw hat and an orange reflective vest on September 2nd. Police say when they released photos from that surveillance video to the public, a bunch of tips came in, and they started saying that you should look at Robert Tejas, that he might be involved. Now, Tejas said he's innocent, that he went for a walk and to the gym during the time that German was killed. But back to that motive that I mentioned about why Robert Tejas would want to go after Jeff German. According to prosecutors, things were not going well at the county office that Tejas supervised, which handled probate matters. And Tejas says he was trying to fight corruption within the office, but German's reporting indicated there was a culture of bullying and tension. And German also reported on an alleged affair that Tejas was having with a subordinate in the office, and he was allegedly working on a follow-up piece to that story when he was killed. And by the way, after German's articles came out, Tejas lost his 2022 primary bid for a second term. So you can get the idea of a motive here. But Tejas maintains that he was framed for German's killing. By who? That's a great question. And this is a new one. He says that a local real estate company, Compass Realty, that they are responsible. So Tejas says he was investigating bribery allegations involving the company, and things had gotten contentious. And I want you to keep that in mind because we'll explore that in a little bit. Now, the state rested on Monday after bringing in 28 witnesses, hundreds of pages and pieces of evidence, including evidence that DNA belonging to Robert Tejas was seemingly found underneath German's fingernails. Tejas, by the way, charged with murder with a deadly weapon against a victim aged 60 or older. If convicted, he faces life in prison. By the way, Tejas is himself an attorney, and that's going to be an important point, as you'll see. He practiced civil law until he was elected to the county administrator position in 2018. His law license, though, was suspended when he was arrested for German's murder. But this is why it's important, because at one point after his arrest, Tejas seemingly wanted to go pro se and represent himself. Now, he later decided to have a defense attorney, Robert Draskevich, handle the case, but Tejas insisted on testifying in his own defense, which, of course, it's his right to do, his decision. His attorney, though, strongly advised against it. And because seemingly you have that difference of opinion here, in an unusual move, the judge gave Tejas permission to testify by way of narration. So that means instead of the typical question and answer format with his defense attorney, Tejas could go up on the stand and just talk and share his story with the jurors. Now, he can't really give an opinion, but he can lay out his version of events. So, on Wednesday of this week, he gets on the stand and he speaks for about an hour and a half before court adjourned for the day.
Somebody framed me for this, and I believe that it's Compass Realty. And I believe that it's for the work that I've done against them. Mr. Gurman's article, his first article comes out. And, I think we had those text messages from me from the day that I saw the article where I was upset. And I think, anybody who's the subject of an article that says certain things about you, could reasonably feel upset about it, right? And I lost the primary. It was a bummer. I'm sorry, I don't know, it was unfortunate. But I continued to fight against Compass Realty, and I think that that's something that they didn't expect. But the fact that Mr. Gurman was killed and it was put on me, that they just had a serendipitous benefit from that.
Hey, we really appreciate you coming to us for this story, and Robert Tejas, it's quite the story. But also, when you come to us here at Sidebar, we also get the opportunity to tell you about some of our amazing partners, like our sponsor, Noble Gold. This is something that could really help you out, because if you're worried about the future of the economy, this could be the company for you. With so much uncertainty these days, it's natural to worry about the security of your retirement savings. But there is one asset that stands the test of time. You guessed it, gold. For centuries, gold has been a hedge against market volatility and economic instability. But by rolling over your existing IRA or 401k into a self-directed gold IRA, you can enjoy the potential for long-term growth and stability. Diversify your portfolio with a tangible asset that has real value. And setting up your gold IRA, it has never been easier with Noble Gold Investment's streamlined process and expert guidance. And right now, Noble Gold will give you a 10-ounce silver American flag bar if you open a qualified account. So go to lawandcrimegold.com now. That's lawandcrimegold.com, or call them at 877-646-5347. Mention Law and Crime. There's always a risk of investment and no guarantee of any kind. Little side note here, by the way. The way that I understand it, essentially, the jury would have to believe that Compass Realty, aside from specializing in real estate transactions, that they are specialists in murder and DNA extraction and framing. I don't know, maybe they kind of outsource that kind of thing. It's a wild claim to make. Then again, if the prosecution is saying, jury, we want you to believe that a former elected official murdered a journalist out in the open because of negative stories, maybe this jury would be open to this alternative theory. Now, when Tejas continued his testimony on Thursday, he told the jury that after his arrest, which he says shocked him, he had considered suicide.
Then I walked into the house, and what I saw hit me even harder. So I found my wife sitting on the floor in our bedroom in the middle of this mess. And so this for me was, the thing that just broke me. I'm sorry. I knew I didn't do this thing, and yet the police claimed to have this evidence. They did what they did to me, and I have $1 million life insurance policy. I didn't want my family to have to go through more torture, and so I don't know what I was thinking, but I thought, you know what? If I can avoid the pain that they're going to suffer during this whole circus and put some money into their hands to make up for me not being there, then maybe this is the thing to do. But it was me never, I'm not guilty. I didn't kill Mr. Gurman. But as you can see, I attempted suicide. And SWAT came in and pulled me out and put me into that ambulance.
So in other words, he didn't want to harm himself because he's guilty of killing Jeff Gehrman, but because of the situation he was in. And that's a similar argument that we've heard when defendants, for example, flee authorities or they're trying to leave the country. The argument is they panicked. They felt that they were being framed. They felt their lives were in danger. It doesn't mean that they're guilty of the crime. Okay. I will tell you, one of the pieces of physical evidence that the state has presented and focused on involved a single gray athletic shoe. This was found cut into pieces inside of a bag underneath Tejas' couch after his arrest. The idea is that the shoe matches what that mysterious figure in the orange vest and straw hat was wearing in the surveillance video. Also, by the way, the prosecution says pieces of a straw hat were found in Tejas' home too. So Tejas' testimony, it took kind of a strange detour on Thursday when he talked to the jury about the kinds of shoes he wears.
Your Honor, may I just stand up for one moment to show the jury why I didn't wear name brand shoes at the office? Just for a moment, and
You just want to stand up?
right where I'm at.
Yes.
Okay. So, I don't know if you noticed the height difference. I wear lifts in my shoes. I'm about 6'5.5", and I call it a vanity thing, right? I just wanted to feel a little taller. And so, if I may just demonstrate why this is important. So, these shoes that have built-in lifts, they're designed in a certain way where they don't slip off a person's foot when you're wearing them. Right? You can see how this is so elongated because there's a lift in here. Right? So you can't put. It's not, from when I've tried, I could not put a lift in a name brand shoe because that shoe would slip right off. There's not enough of the back of this, once that lift's in there, in order to grab a hold of your foot. So essentially, I'd be kicking my shoes off every time I walk. So, I never wore, again, any type of name brand shoe at the office, and I think that's something that will likely be discussed at closing, and how that's relevant. I've never beat anybody up. I've never killed anybody. I didn't kill Mr. Berman. And that's my testimony.
When Tejas wrapped up his narration on Thursday, it was then time for him to face questions from the prosecution on cross-examination, right? You don't just get on the stand and say what you want to say. No, you will face questions from opposing counsel. And the prosecutor questioned how Tejas could think that the killer was a hired assassin when he was wearing pretty conspicuous clothing.
You had mentioned one of the things that struck you was you watched the autopsy, or you saw the autopsy photos, and you were struck by the violence of it, correct?
No, sir.
No, you did not? Were you bothered by the photographs?
I was.
Why is that?
Gruesome. I'm not used to seeing dead people.
Okay. I think you said it was ugly. Is that correct?
I may have.
All right. And you had told this jury that you felt like it looked like someone who knew what they were doing. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You believe this was a professional hit?
And that's what I believe.
Okay. And you believe this killer is kind of almost like someone hired to do this job, like an assassin, essentially, right?
That is what I believe, yes, sir.
All right. Now I want to take a look at this picture for a second. The assassin seems to be wearing a giant sun hat. It's a pretty big hat, right?
Yes, sir.
It's fairly noticeable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You think that might attract attention?
I would think so.
Okay, but this is a professional.
Right.
All right. And this professional is also wearing a bright orange shirt, correct?
Yes, sir.
Professional?
Yes, sir.
But wouldn't that attract attention?
I think that's part of the reason, actually. If I could elaborate.
No. You believe that professional assassins want to draw attention to themselves when they're carrying out murder. That's your testimony?
When they're framing someone, yes, sir.
So the answer to my question is yes. You believe professional assassins like to draw attention to themselves.
It depends on what the nature of their goal is, and if it's to frame someone, yes, sir.
So the answer to my question is yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The prosecutor also pointed out that, according to them, Tejas is connected to a car that's almost identical to the car believed to be driven by the killer.
Okay. Now, if we could cue back over to the PowerPoint presentation. Let's look at these windows. Bottom right-hand corner, sir. The front windows are not tinted, are they?
No, sir.
But the back ones are, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's cue over to your car. Your front windows are not tinted, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And your back ones are, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Coincidence?
I don't think so. I think the killer got a car like mine.
Okay. So you would agree your car looks exactly like the killer's car?
No, sir.
No, it doesn't?
There's a difference with that paint on the lower left-hand side that Mr. Maga testified about.
Okay. Let's talk about other similarities. We've seen footage from the video with the visor down, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I could pull up the slide, but we don't need to because you remember seeing it on the survey, on the videos, right, from the
Right.
PowerPoint?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, publishing 317. And look at that. Your visor's down, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're suggesting that your professional hitman in the funny hat knew about your visor as well?
I'm saying that Mr. Mogg pulled my visor down.
Ah, but you didn't see that, did you, sir?
I didn't see him do it, but
Right. You didn't see it with your own two eyes, correct?
that is correct.
You're just telling it out of whole cloth, correct? You're speculating. Is that right?
I'm speculating just to the extent of who exactly did it, but sure.
Right. You don't even know who it was, correct?
It could have been another officer, yes.
Okay. So you believe that it must have been the police, but you never witnessed anything like that happen.
I just
Correct?
know that I did not commit the murder, so that could not have been
Okay.
my car
I
or my
understand you're
visor.
not taking responsibility, sir, but just to get back to my question, you never saw anyone manipulate your car, correct?
I never saw anyone firsthand, no.
Thank you. But the visor is down, just like the killer.
And
Correct.
anyone could have removed it at any point in time,
The
sir.
answer to my question is yes. The visor is down, just like the killer's Yukon, correct?
Anyone could have moved it at any point.
So the answer to my question is yes.
At
The
what-
visor is down, just like the killer's car.
You're talking about, obviously, at this point in time.
Your visor is down in your Yukon, just like the killer's Yukon, correct?
Again, without knowing who did it, yes.
Thank you.
And another damning piece of evidence against Tejas is what I mentioned before, that allegedly his DNA was found underneath Gehrman's fingernails.
There's one thing I didn't hear you mention. The DNA. I'd like to talk about that with you. You're not disputing that your DNA is underneath Mr. Gehrman's fingernails, are you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. But you've heard the testimony. It's there, correct?
I don't know if it was there or at what point it might have gotten there, sir.
Okay. I'm not asking you how it got there. Are you really denying that your DNA is underneath the fingernails?
Without knowing the truth, yes, I am.
Okay. Well, you've heard witnesses testify.
Right.
So the DNA lab's in on it too?
I don't know. I don't know at what point. I don't know what point
How
this
did-
sample
then
was
how did you get
collected.
there? Sir, please tell this jury, how in the world does your DNA get underneath Mr. Gehrman's fingernails?
I don't know because I did not kill Mr. German.
You have no idea how it could have gotten underneath your fingernails, correct?
Under my
I'm
fingernails?
sorry, under his fingernails, correct?
I don't know that it ever was, sir.
All right. Let's do it another way. You and Mr. Gehrman are not friends, are you?
No,
Okay? You don't hang out with him ever?
sir. I did not ever hang out with Mr. German when he was
The answer to
alive.
my question is yes. You didn't hang out with him ever, correct?
I did not.
He's never invited you over to his house.
No, sir.
You've never hung out, had drinks at a bar, correct?
No, sir.
there would be really no opportunity for him ever to put his hands on you in any sort of social situation, correct?
Correct, sir.
And yet, these two people who are not friends, your DNA just happens to be underneath his fingernails. Correct?
No, sir.
Okay. You just don't think it was legitimately placed there, correct? Or are you just ignoring the testimony of all of the witnesses that talked about how your DNA was underneath the fingernails?
Again, at some point or another, I believe it was planted because I did not kill Mr. Gurman.
So, and by that logic, if you believe it was planted, you are at least admitting, yes, my DNA is underneath his fingernails, correct? Can you at least agree with me on that?
Whether it came from a sample of the fingernails or a different sample altogether, I don't know. I couldn't tell you,
But
sir.
the answer to my question is yes. You're at least acknowledging my
No, sir.
physical DNA is underneath the fingernails.
No, sir.
Okay, great. So you're just going to disregard what all the other DNA witnesses said about this, correct?
Okay.
That's fair. That's fine. Totally fine.
Prosecutor also pushed back against Tejas' theory that Las Vegas Metropolitan Police planted the evidence in this case.
But before we move on, I gotta ask you this too. So like if Metro's really, so you think Metro's framing you for this?
As I said before, I think that we've got some officers who are overzealous and who've decided to help Jappy plug holes in his case,
Sure.
not knowing what his relationship was with Compass Realty.
Here's
I object,
Sir?
if you'd be allowed to answer the question before.
Okay.
Next question, please.
Sir, I got a question for you. If the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department wanted to frame you, why didn't they put the murder weapon in your house?
I think that maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I mean,
Great question, because if the murder weapon that had Gehrman's DNA in was inside your house, wouldn't that be an even better case?
yeah, but at the same time, I think
But it's not there, is it?
no.
No, it's not. Even though, according to you, they control everything, they don't put the murder weapon on you?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense?
I think it does.
Okay. How about this? If Compass Realty wants to kill you, why don't they encourage Metro like, we'd really like you to put the murder weapon in there? Why didn't they do something like that?
I don't know.
That seems really odd that the most significant thing is not in your house, correct?
I think what's odd is that 5 days after the murder, that supposedly there was a shoe
So the answer
and
to my
also a
question-
hat in my house.
So the answer to my question, the most significant piece of evidence, the murder weapon, is not in your house despite your theory you've been framed.
That's correct, sir.
According to the prosecution, more than 100 downloaded images of Gehrman were found on Tejas' phone, downloaded before the journalist was killed. A digital forensics tech with the police department also testified that another 132 images on Tejas' phone were from Google Maps, showing Gehrman's home and the street he lived on. Tejas reportedly looked up Gehrman's vehicle registration, his address on his work computer. Once again, Tejas claimed it was planted.
Sir, do you find it a little bit strange that when you find information that's helpful for you in your phone, you don't think there's a problem with it, but when there's damaging evidence in your phone, you believe maybe it's been hacked or compromised?
I do think that if someone was trying to frame me, that obviously they would leave the content that I made on the phone as well as whatever they decided to put on there.
Well, the prosecutor isn't done with Mr. Tejas yet. No, the defendant is back on the stand again at the time of this recording. We will, of course, keep following this case for you, and if there are big developments, we will bring them to you here on Sidebar. What a case. What a case. That's all we have for you right now. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.